Today we're talking about radical advising, the power of culturally grounded mentorship, and what it takes to create a school climate where Black and brown students feel safe, seen, and pushed academically. In the classroom joining me is Dr. Khary Moody. Thank you for being here. So let's jump into it. Can you tell us more about who you are, your values, and how they align with your work?
So thank you for having me, Eric, to your podcast. So yes, Khary Moody, Dr. Khary Moody, principal currently in the School District of Philadelphia. I serve James R. Ludlow Elementary School community. I've been there, this is now my 7th or 8th year, lost track, since 2018. Currently, we are a school that is really grounded in our core values, right? Our core values are being respectful, being responsible, being safe, and being kind. Those core values are what guide each of us throughout the day. I remind staff regularly that those core values are not just for the students, right? They're also for us as we move throughout the day. We expect students embody these core values. As we expect that from them, we should expect the same from ourselves, from how we model, engage, and interact with one another as colleagues, and then, of course, as we engage with students, families, and stakeholders. So I've been in education since 2001, born and raised in Philadelphia. I consider myself a product of the School District of Philadelphia. Even though I graduated from a Catholic school, Cardinal Doherty, I spent up until my 9th grade year in public schools in Philly, and then I went to Cardinal Doherty. But I always wanted to give back to young people. I know we were talking earlier and you mentioned how you always dreamed of being a teacher. That was not necessarily my dream, right, of being a teacher, but I knew that I wanted to impact young people. So I actually started out undergraduate in criminal justice, began to work as a juvenile probation officer for 2 years. Became very disenchanted with the idea of the system and then my ability to impact. Opportunity came for me to come over to the school district and alternative education, where I could leverage my experience in the courts. And as I began to learn the school system, I was offered the opportunity to establish a transition center for juvenile delinquents coming out of incarceration or court-ordered placement. Right, where they would actually come to me. Originally, it was 5 days to be transitioned. Then it got extended to 10 days. I had a multi-agency team, a collaboration of, at that time, this is like 2005, 2003, 2005. So it was really one of the first of its kind, where we actually, at one site, we had a probation officer, someone from DHS Social Services, Community Behavioral Health, and we sat and we created transition plans for each of those students to kind of make sure that as they transitioned back from incarceration, court order placement, that they had a successful transition back into school. So it was kind of there where I really began to appreciate how education can impact lives, right? And how we can set a course for a student, either to be successful or either to be unsuccessful through their experience in school. So
yeah, with your, first of all, impressive background.
Thank you.
What is your treatment when it comes to behaviors at your school?
So I've had an evolution of how I handle disruptive students. If you would have asked me that question in 2014 when I first arrived at the principalship at Demner Bieber Middle School in West Philly, it would have been more of definitely, at the time the culture was different as well. It was a lot more zero tolerance, right? Like it was a lot more suspending everybody. I'm kicking you out. Like these are the rules. It's my way or the highway type of attitude, right? But it was the time, and it was a rough school, right? It was a rough era for that community and that neighborhood and the students that we serve. So in order to create like a safe environment, that's who I had to be. But as I evolved as a principal, as a leader, I began to see that was not the only way, and that was not appropriate for all students. There's definitely the need to hold students accountable, but you can hold someone accountable and still hold them accountable with love, right? I can tell you that you're doing wrong, but I can also tell you that I love you as well, right? And I'm doing this because I love you and because I care for you. So I am going to hold you accountable, right? Because what I don't want is for you to leave my school and you won't ever be able to say, well, no one told me that I couldn't do X, Y, and Z, right? Because I'm going to tell you that these things that you are doing, these decisions you're making, they're bad, they're poor decisions, and they could lead you somewhere where you do not want to be, right? And it doesn't necessarily always have to be the consequence in terms of suspension, in-school suspension, right? Me having that conversation with you, me having that conversation with your parent, you meeting with someone you offended, right? Like lifting up restorative practices, right? Where someone is held to a certain level of personal accountability, where you actually call out the harm you caused and you consider the harm you caused and you apologize to that person, or somehow you figure out a way to make amends for the harm that you created. That is something that I believe actually, and again, it's individual basis, but that's something that can carry and stay with a child longer than a suspension, right? Because after a while, suspensions can become something that the child may even see as a reward, right? I didn't want to come to school anyway, right? So I don't care if you suspend me. And then depending on what the home life and what the care is when they're outside of school, right? I know if I was ever to get suspended, right, it was over for me, right? But now, as we move into suspensions, a lot of times you will see the lack of support, all right, and you will see kids still come to school when they're suspended, right? Even though, you know what I mean, they may have been notified, but the parent is against it, and the parent's they demonstrate, this is how I'm going to support my child. I'm going to support my child, even when my child may have done something wrong. I'm going to support them do this because this is how I want to parent. But that's not reality, right? Because if they, outside of the school, if they are in the community and they commit a crime, they're going to be subjected and they're going to be held to certain levels of accountability, right? So just having that conversation. But just going back to your question around, I just think now how I lead is definitely through a level of love. I mentioned my core values: respectful, responsible, safe. I actually added kindness about 2 or 3 years ago because I felt like we just need more kindness in this world, in the city and at the school. So that is something that I believe is huge, right? How do we demonstrate kindness and love to anyone in the school community, even when you are doing wrong, right? Like now, I may, if you're in the act of doing something wrong, you may not feel the love in that moment because I'm going to redirect you. But afterwards, we're going to have a conversation about it, and I'm going to explain to you, why what you were doing was wrong and the harm you could cause to the community.
Yeah. I think redirection is another way of loving. It's a firm way of loving, because I tell my kids this all the time. I'm redirecting because if I didn't, I ignore you.
Exactly.
That's showing you I don't care what you do. Exactly. But now that I'm redirecting you and I'm giving you this long speech that you don't want to hear, obviously I care about how you show up daily, right? So my redirection is love.
And that is exactly that is true, right? If I don't see you, if I don't say anything to you, then
it's like whatever.
Right.
I want to start with what we can feel before we can measure. The building's climate, the way students are greeted, corrected, changed, challenged, and cared for, because that's where belonging is either built or broken. What does it take to build a school climate where Black and brown students feel safe, seen, and pushed academically, especially when families are carrying a lot outside the building?
It's a good question. I would say that for me, it begins with the leader, right? Like it begins with the tone that I set in my vision, in my actions. Like for me, like I find it important that I greet the students in the morning whenever possible, right? Like I'm outside, I'm on the corner, right? I want them to see me. I want to say good morning to them. I want to give them a smile, right? I want to shake their hand, a high five, whatever it is, right? Like I want to make sure that they know that when they come in, whatever has transpired, last night in the morning, like when you come in here, like we're happy to see you. And that stuff doesn't matter because in here, like I want to make sure that you're safe. I want to make sure that you are seen, and I want to make sure that you are learning. All right. So I think from that, the day kind of flows from there, right? Because in that, then as they encounter every other adult, I think it's incumbent upon that adult to also make sure that they greet them with love, right? That they make them feel special. And it's also a way for me to kind of gauge how the day is going to go, right? I can also, I know my students, if I know certain kids come in a certain way, I'm like, all right, I need to check in with them. I need my counselor to check in with them. Like I need an adult to see them, right? Their teacher. And then that's how I begin to communicating with my team, right? Like based off of the feel of that morning and what I'm seeing in students, that's how we then deploy and support them.
You spoke about your team a week ago and how much you'll try to put all the trust in them, their skills, with their strengths, and you just try to rely on that. And how much does your trust in them affects, how the school day works, how systems work?
It's invaluable, right? Because if I don't have a certain amount of trust in them, then I would find myself trying to do everything, right? So the trust happened over time, right? Like I said, I had the advantage now of being there 7 years. So it didn't happen day one, right? But what happened, it happened through relationship. It happened through, again, me communicating my vision. It happened through me modeling, and it happened through conversations like you and I are having, right? It's one thing to have conversations with my entire staff, go through the, vision, the data, but then after I set a certain vision, after I set certain goals, how do I then, again, accountability, how do I again take that data point and apply it to my assistant principal, apply it to my counselor, apply it to my school-based teacher leader, right? How do I get them to see how their role impacts and move numbers, right? How I get them to see how their role begins to impact children and students, right? So every part of my school plan, not only am I involved in it, but each member of my leadership team, like they own a piece of it, right? So in owning that piece of it, they own a piece of the larger school mission. They own a piece of of how the school moves. And I believe it also gives them a sense, it's a pride point for them, right? When they know that every day when they come in, like they understand what their role is. They understand how I expect them to move. And then through daily check-ins and weekly one-to-one meetings, that's how we kind of keep ourselves on target.
What's the demographic for the teachers in your school?
Teachers would be, I would say it's 75% white, Caucasian, and then the other 25 is African American. Although that 25 African American, they are all female, and of the 75 white teachers, 75% white teachers, I would say I have a good amount of male teachers for elementary school. I would say about 40% of them are male and the rest are female.
Given the historical weight communities carry, exclusion, mislabeling, disconnection, why is mentorship so important right now?
Well, I think it's important right now. I think it's important like eternally. I think it's important, period. I mentioned to you about how I began working in education through my work with the adjudicated youth. Mm-hmm. The one common theme that I recognized in many of those young men is that somewhere along the way, they had some level of, we'll call it trauma in school, right? That disconnected them from the process of education, where they lost their desire to be in school, where they didn't see themselves as being a student, or where they didn't see themselves with the capability of being academically successful. So what I promised myself once I led this kindergarten to eighth grade, school, this elementary school, is that I would never harm any child in that way, right? Where I completely turn them off to school, where if they leave me, like I don't want them to go to, because we know the numbers in high school, ninth grade is that pivotal year. Like if they don't make it out of ninth grade, it's very hard for them to, to graduate. So how do I set up a process where when they leave me in eighth grade, at least they're set up for success for that ninth grade to go into high school. And then at that point, I turn it over to the other principals in the district. But I have to ensure that they have a great K-8 experience. So I do that through, this may sound similar to my other response, but it's through every member of the school community. Like I can't mentor everyone, right? So I actually refer to my staff as educators, right? Everyone's an educator. Support staff, classroom assistants, building engineer, kitchen staff, because if you are inside of a school community, working inside of a school building, you interface and interact with students. And how you interact with them, it can be that traumatic moment that disconnects them, right? Even if you don't, if you see yourself, well, I'm not the teacher, but you are an educator, right? Like you could be the difference in that child having a great day, that child having an okay day, and that child having a horrible day, right? Like, so I kind of put the onus on every adult in the school, maybe not to mentor in a sense where I'm not saying you gotta have that relationship and you talk to them every day, but you are a role model, right? How you carry yourself, how you speak, even when you're not speaking to children, like when you're speaking to a colleague, right? Like your words, like kids they're watching everything, right? So if I as the leader am telling students, this is a safe place, right? This is a place where you will be respected. This is a place where people will be kind to you and love you, right? I also need every adult to buy into that. I need every adult in every space, even when I'm not around, especially when I'm not around, to make sure that they are carrying that, right? Because then that child begins to really trust not just me, but every adult, because the things that I tell them, now they begin to see. That family can now begin to trust what I'm saying. And then if they experience something counter to our core values, they let me know, right? And then it becomes incumbent upon me. It's my responsibility now to correct it and figure out what happened, why it happened. And now it's my responsibility now to restore that trust for that child and for that family. So it may not be like the true definition of mentorship, but if you're in my building 7 hours a day, right, 180, whatever, how many days we in school, like that becomes your family. That becomes, right, where the child is with you constantly from kindergarten, because I have some students, a great deal of students that actually stay with me from kindergarten through 8th grade, right? So they've grown up at Ludlow, right? Like, as much as we want to put some level of responsibility on a parent, like, we're responsible for who that child becomes as an adult, because we raised them from 5 until 14. So that mentorship is really grounded in relationships, modeling care and love.
Yeah. My backstory, like I said, in 5th grade, I did want to become a teacher because my 5th grade teacher was actually my cousin.
Okay.
So she cultivated some love of learning in me while I was under her wing. But I didn't have a male mentor until maybe 7th, 8th grade.
Okay.
And his name was Principal Thomas L.
I know, Mr.
So in 7th grade, I realized that I was on the bottom tier of performance, right? They had 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", and that's how it went for 7th grade.
Right, the sections.
The sections. And I realized at the end of 6th grade, I'm like, I'm at the bottom of this tier in which I knew that I could perform better. I knew I could show up better, but I didn't know how to do it.
Right.
It was not until he came into the school and he started his mentorship. He would take the boys or a group of boys on the weekends to like different parts of Philadelphia, have like lessons, taught us how to tie a tie,
right,
and things like that. And because of him, I learned accountability of myself and my academics and how I show up.
That's what's up.
So that following year, we had to do the benchmarks, and I moved from 7.2 to 7.1 because in 6.3,
yes,
I was like, hold on.
Yes,
At the end, I had to like really show up on these benchmarks. I'm like, so it's depending on these benchmarks, it's saying like, okay, I'm a low performer, and I really didn't take this serious because I'm like, why does it really matter?
No.
Right, but it mattered.
It matters a lot. It matters a lot, and I think that kind of demonstrates how you were at like a tipping point, right? Mm-hmm. Where you began to recognize the importance of the data, right, and the benchmarks. But if you didn't have someone to kind of help you along the way, right, like you could have went a different direction. I
could have went anywhere.
Right. So
I could definitely went anywhere.
Right. So you had that self-recognition, and then along with Thomas L. coming on board, like that kind of is what springboarded and elevated you to where you are now. Well, that's awesome.
With your mentorship, what do you do, or what's your treatment for students that come from single parent homes that might need some guidance from a Black male?
Well, if you don't mind, just to kind of go on a tangent on your question. So I might have mentioned this when you and I met, but currently I am a Neubauer Fellow, a member of Cohort 8, and I have 8 other administrators that work with me, and we created a movement. It's actually an organization, a Student Network Partners, in partnership with the Neubauer family and the School District of Philadelphia. where our program is grounded in mentorship, where we so it's a combination of men. The overall mission is to increase the amount of men of color in education. As I watched a snippet of that podcast, I heard you throw out the numbers that are accurate, and that's what we based our mission on. I think you mentioned 1.3 of educators around the country are men of color. We actually had a number that said 1.2, right?
Not lower. Come on
right,
now.
Right. So what we're trying to do within our locus of control is to increase those numbers, right? So through our initiative, we actually have a two-pronged approach where we have a track for students currently in 10th grade, and we looked for students across the city. And we have a combination of students that attend Carver High School, Central, Northeast. It's 10 of them.
Okay.
And then we have our second track, which are adult educators. So with the students, our goal is to get them into Temple's TES program, which is a dual enrollment program where they can actually attend and earn, I believe, up to 16 to 18 credits before they graduate, with the hope that they will then go into education. And the hope is that we are getting to know these young men in 10th grade, and then over these 2 to 3 years, as we build relationships and mentor them, that they begin to see that education, the field of education, has value, right? Similar to your story, right? How when you had these pivotal black men come into your lives at pivotal points in your life, and then it led you to the classroom, right? So how can we begin to impact young people and kind of dispel many of the myths around education, right? Like for me, the reason why I didn't consider education, it was because like you can't make no money, it's a hard job, right? But you're limited, right, on what you can do, but that's not true, right? There are so many avenues within education. And then for me, as I began to move through education, you begin to see in the different roles how you can, we talked a little bit about this also, how you begin to have greater influence on more students, on more individuals based on your role as a leader, right? So then with the adults, that's where we're trying to move them, right? They are currently educators. So now they aspire to be leaders, right? Men of color. So how do we mentor them to get them to move from the classroom, from a climate manager or a dean of culture, to become an assistant principal, a teacher leader, a principal, right? So our goal with them, and they are mentored with us for 1.5 years. Our goal at the end of that 1.5 years is for them to move into a leadership position, right? So that's how we're quantifying success with them. So we spend, it's one session a month for the adults over the next 1.5 years, and it's 2 sessions a month for the students, where we build rapport and we have workshops and sessions, professional development, and then in between that, we do shadowing days where they actually come to our schools. Students and the adults come to our schools, so they get to see from a leader's perspective how we actually operate and create the culture and everything that you're asking me. How do we actually make it happen so that they can then become inspired and they can go out and try to replicate that. If there's an adult, they can go try to replicate that at their school, and hopefully that will then push them to the next step. If it's a student, it's planting that seed for the future. So with this Student Network Partners program, we're trying to impact the future through the students and trying to impact more so the immediate through the adults. So
I love that. You mentioned that in Roger's class, and
Yes.
I'm like, wait, I gotta have a conversation with you.
So yeah, so like that, that to me is how we begin to disrupt systems.
Yeah.
Right? Right. So it's going beyond just my school, and I believe we do good work in my school. But now, like, how do we now begin to impact the entire school district, and eventually even begin to impact our neighboring districts as this initiative grows?
Something that Darren Rainey stated is that we need to refocus our pedagogy, right? To build students who not only can be competitive in the real world, but to also build and sustain. And that's what you're doing. And that's your work. So thank you for that. Because honestly, that's what we need. We need to redefine what education look like in urban education.
Yes.
For students and for families, get family buy-in, connect with them, have teachers who are culturally responsive and have a love for teaching and love for learning so they can keep growing.
A love for their students, a love for their community.
Love for their community is the word.
Right. Like, so if I love my community and I am from the community, you know, I want to give back and I want to build my community, right? I'm not driving from, I don't know,
Bucks County
to come into Philly, right? It's not just a drive-by,
Yeah.
right? And even if by chance, even if I'm right outside the city in Cheltenham, but I grew up in Philly, right? So Philly is still in my heart. It doesn't leave me, right? And so for me to want to see students flourish in the city, I owe any success I have, I owe because of what I learned as a student and what I've learned working inside the school district of Philadelphia.
Yeah, and I think the respectability when it comes to that is that you're from Philly. You said you are a product of Philadelphia. And just how grounded and real you are. I think a lot of kids gotta relate to you so much. I mean, why wouldn't they? I think that's the same thing when it comes to me. It's like, wait, Mr. Gardner, he sound like he from Philly.
Right.
He got that Philly
Right.
his accent. He also, the way I navigate through just this space. My last year in college, I told myself I'm not code switching anymore. This is who I am. Why am I trying to, water down or change who I am?
Right.
This is who I am.
You're right. I had a certain moment. It was older. I wasn't in college when I had this moment. But even though, I don't think I ever really
Code
switched. If I think about reflection, but even now, even how I lead, right? I'm going to be unapologetically black, right? I'm a black man,
Right.
and there's nothing I can do about that,
Yeah.
right? And that's how I'm going to lead. To your point, we cannot water down the fact that we are black men, right? And if we have a certain rapport, if we interact with our students of color in a certain way, right? That's just natural. That's just innate, right? That's just how it is. Like how you said, the kids recognize something in you because they see that in them,
Yep.
right? And there's something that you cannot, you can't quantify that. You can't put a finger on that. There's no data point for that. It is what it is.
And one thing, like you said, the teachers got to have the love for the community, love for family, love for a child, right? I walk to school. I walk back and forth. I literally live right there in the Cobbs Creek.
Okay.
It's like a 25-minute walk.
Right.
But the kids,
So
when they first saw me doing that, they like, wait, you don't have a car? I said, no. I'm like, I live literally right there. I could walk through Cobbs Creek and my house is right there.
Right.
And I see kids at the corner store and I'm like, y'all hungry?
You're
Y'all
here,
want something?
you're in the community,
You
right.
know? And then I had a conversation with one of the corner store people, and I learned that person that works in the corner store is a family member of one of the kids here. So we engaged about who are they. Like, oh, we know who you are, Mr. Gardner. They always come home and talk about. I'm like, hold on. So obviously, I'm making impact.
Yeah, that's dope, right?
And obviously, it's important for you to walk the neighborhood, understand the kids that you are servicing, and not only that, also connect with the families. I mean, they're people too. They're critical partners, and they should be involved in a lot of decision making that's happening for the kids. And schools continue to miss that mark. And also, if you don't believe in the school you're servicing, why are you working there?
Exactly.
Right? No, why are you working there?
You know, you're very right about that. And I don't know if it's in one of the questions, but just thinking about, like, I think you asked me about my staff, right? And you asked me earlier about, you know, the composition of my staff. And with the, and this probably happens a lot, well, at least in the schools that I've led. You'll see in some of the schools that I visited, you'll see a distinct line when it comes to teaching staff being majority white, and then the support staff being like majority black.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, so in that, I try to, and again, going back to the point around everybody as educator, like I try my best to blur that line as best as possible, because I know that there is power and value in the support staff who look like the students. So how do I then begin to allow them, the support staff, to see themselves as educators? And how do I begin to leverage them to influence the overall culture of the school?
Yeah.
And then how do I get my majority white teaching staff? Like, COVID was, you know, obviously COVID, but the one thing that COVID allowed for more time when we were in virtual. It allowed time to spend with staff, and it also opened up the opportunity, you know, with all the civil unrest. That's when I really began to talk to my staff, my majority white staff, about teaching black students in the hood, right? Like, I had those conversations with them, right? About having a black male principal, right? Like, so there was opportunity to have those conversations then, right? I know, you know, equity now has become a dirty word, but you still have to kind of speak the obvious, right? Like, I'm going to call out the obvious that, you know, we do have a majority, like 95% of our students are black, and 75% of our teachers are white. But that doesn't mean that they don't love and care for our students, right? So, and I'm saying all this because it kind of goes back to your point of you have to want to be here. And that's what I really hope and expect for my teachers, is that they really want to be there. They really want to be at James R. Ludlow. And they understand what I'm asking of them and that they're buying into it. And I guess kind of a testament, you know, to that is the fact that even though, I know we won't talk about this, even though my school is recommended for closure, like all of my staff is staying on board, right? Even through the recommendation, I haven't had anyone, maybe one, come to me and tell me that they were thinking about leaving. But they are so connected with the vision and the mission and the work and the children that they are staying on, they plan to stay on board through the end of next year.
I can see that. And I love that they're invested in staying. And I wonder, would that be like applied to the transition plan for the entire community? So how can they?
Let's hope.
Yeah. How can you help? How can you get the teachers to help the students transition to the next step? Yeah. It's good timing. You could make one commitment that every school leader in Philly should adopt, especially during the closure and the transitions, to protect Black and brown students belonging through culturally grounded mentorship. What would it be, and what would families notice first when it's working?
One thing. I think the one thing is that just be visible. Just be visible in your school community. Be accessible to students. Like if you can, however, everybody's day is set up differently, but if you can create intentional opportunities throughout your day to be accessible to students and to be visible and to interact with students, it's important for me that students know that if they see me and they have a problem, a question, a thought, that they can come up to me and they can have that conversation with me, right? Like I want to be accessible to them. It's just important. It goes back to that idea of trust. So I would say as a principal, it's easy for us to get caught up and sucked into being in your office because there's so many other things to do. But if you can just find a way to be visible and to be accessible for your students, I think that will lend itself to creating relationships and that trust that could set up a loving culture.
Visibility is very important. Did you bring a letter?
So I didn't bring a letter. I brought this bracelet, right, that one of the students made me.
Okay.
Young lady, she's now in 5th grade. So last year in 4th grade, she gave it to me. Last year, her and her mother were involved in a horrific accident, like on the way to school, walking to school. They were crossing the street and this guy just blew the stop sign. Hit both of them. Mom took the brunt of it. You know, she like pushed the door out the way and took most of the hit. She was in the hospital for quite some time. And just, you know, the daughter, the one thing I remember was that even after that, when she was better, like, she wanted to be in school. She wanted to come to school, and she gave me this bracelet. It just says Principal Dr. Moody. It's nothing, but it just reminds me of the resilience of students, of how, you know, they can endure things, and the fact that everything that I try to do of making a safe, loving environment culture, like the fact that she really wanted to be in school, it just kind of reinforces, again, that I'm on the right path, and it reaffirms for me, you know, why I work so hard to create that culture, because like I want them to want to be in school.
That's a good, what would you call that?
What?
When a kid give you a
token?
A token. Yeah, it's a good token. The intentionality when it comes to when the kids are creating something for somebody specific, that's the way they showing that I love you. I can't tell you how many bracelets I got. I got bracelets, I got cups. I'm like, all right, y'all, I got enough cups.
Right. So I mean, I have the letters. I actually have this like trunk of cards from when I got my doctorate in 23. They threw this surprise assembly for me with every kid in the school wrote something special down. Like, and that's one of the few moments in my career where I actually felt that level of emotion where I did want to break down and start to cry.
Okay.
So, you know, that's something that I keep at home. This is something that I keep in school and I wear from time to time. But, you know, those two things are very impactful. So when you asked me that question, like I could have brought a letter in and all that kind of stuff, but I just thought this was most appropriate because she did make it, and it is, you know.
No, I like that. I like that trinket. Yeah, like I said, it's a good token to have that from a student because they saw it as a
way to reciprocate the love.
Yeah. All right, well, that's the end of this episode. Thank you for coming and conversing with me about what is needed in our community. Obviously, mentorship is a big impact on our students, specifically our Black boys. And I would just encourage you to keep on doing the work.
Thank you.
Building up our students, making them become competitors in this society that is ever growing,
Yep.
right? But actually finding their place and building and sustaining. So thank you again.
Thank you, Eric.
No problem.
Appreciate it.